As many of you know, the Clinton School, part of our curriculum is to do field service work abroad. Oftentimes, the planning phase for that is the hardest part, picking where to go, what area to focus on. So when I was contemplating where I wanted to go, I took into consideration that I hadn't been many places abroad compared to some of my more well-traveled classmates. I don't know if Jamaica exactly counts as living abroad. However, having the world at your fingertips is literally just a remarkable feeling that's hard to describe. So when Joe Ballard, the director of international public field work, came up to me and said, "Hey Josh, how about India?" I said, "Sure, why not? Let's try it out." So Joe introduced me to Dan Morrison of what was then called OneWell, now Citizen Effect. And Dan told me about the hardships of the people of northwest India in the states of Gujarat and Rajasthan. And I soon got to experience that firsthand. 3 months without meat, alcohol, and more importantly, air conditioning when it's 120 degrees can teach you a lot about yourself, but also more about what it's like to be a global citizen and experiencing a different culture, a different lifestyle that is completely foreign to your own. I had the honor of being taught this lesson of citizenship by Dan Morrison and the team at Citizen Effect. Actually, Dan will probably not like me telling this story because he's kind of a humble guy, but he said whenever I would go to a village in India, he would say, I would meet with the villagers and talk with them about what's going on, and then I'd always ask about Danbai. And Bai in Gujarati means brother, and they'd always say Danbai is a god. And they literally look at him like that because of the great work that he and the team at Citizen Effect does. The idea of citizen philanthropist is one that permeates throughout the organization and is well known to anyone who works with the Citizen Effect organization. Quoting from their website, Citizen Effect gives citizen philanthropists the ability to choose their projects and leverage their social networks. Simply put, Dan's organization finds innovative ways to engage citizens and to encourage a global mindset among them. Dan's history as a consultant is what led him to constantly seek new solutions to complex problems in the realms of public service. This honors graduate of Notre Dame received his master's in Middle Eastern Studies from the University of Chicago, and in just 2 years, Citizen Effect has raised over $133,000 from over 519 donors, which affected the lives of 17,835 people in 8 different countries in just 2 years. So, in advocacy class here at the Clinton School, Professor Standifer says that everyone can be an advocate. The same is true for citizen philanthropy. So please help me welcome to the Clinton School a friend, a pioneer, and a true citizen philanthropist, Mr. Dan Morrison.
Thanks so much, Josh. Really, really appreciate that. And anyone who wants great stories from India about Josh, come see me afterwards, including the popsicle story, which is definitely a classic. But no, Josh was an amazing asset for us, and thank you for all your service. Really appreciate it. And thank you to the Clinton School, to Skip and Joe, and all our friends at the Clinton Foundation as well. It is always an honor being here. I've done a little work with the Clinton Foundation in the past, and it's my second trip to Little Rock, and it's a great little city. So thanks so much. Today's a very, very special day, especially from someone from Chicago who's a Cubs fan. Today is the day pitchers and catchers started spring training. And the reason why it's so special is because it's the best day of the season for us Cubs fans, because it only gets worse from now. All right. But as a baseball fan, I think all of us are kind of obsessed with numbers and stats. Okay, so you have, batting 400. The last time that happened was Ted Williams back in '41. You have 61 home runs by Roger Maris. You have 714 home runs by Babe Ruth. You have 70 home runs by Mark McGwire. You have 73 by Barry Bonds, and on, just numbers and numbers and numbers that I kind of, get obsessed about. And of course, the most important but also most disappointing and disheartening number is 102, which is the years it's been since the Chicago Cubs won the World Series. So that number really, really bothers me. But at the same time, There's some other numbers that really bother me too. 1.4 billion people living on less than $1.25 a day. 2 billion people that don't have access to water and sanitation. And a quarter of us don't actually have access to electricity. So, those numbers, 102 is bad, but those numbers are really, really problematic and troublesome. Even more so because, let's bring down the lights a little bit. I'm actually not going to do the PowerPoint, so you can turn that back on. Is that the UN, the U.S. government, the World Bank, the IMF, these large organizations, ever since World War II, have been trying to address these major problems, to alleviate poverty, to try to educate as many people as possible, to bring clean water to people around the world. And it's been very difficult. Then you have the Rockefeller Foundations, you have the Ford Foundation, MacArthur's, et cetera, the titans of industry, which people like Warren Buffett and Bill Gates have now joined to try to address the world's most pressing challenges. And, we're still struggling to address these numbers. And because I think the problem is the numbers are so large, and they're staggering. So when you think about us, individuals, citizens, students, parents, teachers, the average Joes and the average Janes, like, where does that leave us? It's completely discouraging. And, I think about when I was going to college and what I wanted to do with my life. And I'd always been, kind of committed to, public service. And I studied history. But when I left college, I had no idea what to do because I didn't really see a way to make a real impact. So I did what most people do, and I went out and found a job and tried to make as much money as possible so I could pay my rent and, put food on my table and maybe someday make enough money so I could then be comfortable enough to make a decent contribution to a cause that I believed in. But I found that woefully unsatisfying, and I don't think that definitely is the way to go and to go about it. But I think that's the reason is because we frame the problems wrong. Framing the problem at 1.4 billion people that live on less than $1.25 a day, nobody can solve that problem. Not Bill Gates, not Bill Clinton, not a government, not a multinational organization. It's just too big. And so my mom always did teach me a lesson. So now you guys are like, wow, it started off with baseball, but now I'm depressed. But my mom taught me never to state a problem without a potential solution. My problem is I didn't know what the solution was until actually I met an amazing person at the Clinton Global Initiative in New York back in 2006. And I was there helping the foundation and had met a woman named Rima Nanavati, and she is the head of the Self-Employed Women's Association in Gujarat, India, the group that Josh had spoken about and worked with this last summer. And she kind of made a big mistake. She looked at me and said, "Hey, why don't you come and visit in India? I'll show you kind of what SEWA is doing." And I looked at her and I said, "Be very careful what you ask for." At the time, I was running my own consulting firm and doing consulting around economic development and policy work, but took her up on the offer. And for 10 days, toured around rural India and literally just listened. I'd been in a lot of boardrooms. I'd done a lot of focus groups. I'd told a lot of people what to do throughout my consulting career as a professional, and literally had never been more intimidated in my life. So we'd be in these situations where 75 women had come together. They'd walked hours. Some of them had traveled days to just sit and talk with me, only because Rima had told them to. This woman that runs the organization. And so they just started telling their stories. And I think in a lot of the work we do, it is about stories. And it's about really hearing those stories, and when you hear that number, 1.4 billion, there's 1.4 billion stories behind that, but you never get to hear them. And so, one of the stories I heard was from this woman. She was about, she looked like she was about 85 years old. And so I have no idea how old she really was. And she started off by saying, before I knew Sewa, I only knew the four walls of my house. Not because, someone told me to, not because of religion, not because of anything else. That was just the way it was. And she goes, then I met Sewa. And then they said, hey, this might be, and she said to herself, this might be the first time that I'm actually going to be able to do something to get my family out of poverty. And she told the story about how she took a loan to buy 20 bikes. And she then rented those bicycles to the salt pan workers that had to ride out into the desert for work every day and then come back. And she said, tomorrow is the day that I get to pay off my loan. And I was like, wow, that is amazing. And it turned out that she'd also taken her business plan into a commercial bank, Bank of Baroda, and gotten another loan to buy another 21 bicycles at a better rate than she had gotten from Sewa Bank. And so here she was, not a day of education in her life, but she had put together this business, had a 100% repayment rate on the bikes, and was now giving small loans to other people in her community. And so that was an amazing story, but one that was happening all over India and all over the world. But at the same time, what was important for me was when she looked at me and said, I don't need you to tell me what to do. I need you to help me and partner with me to take advantage of those opportunities that are right in front of me, but I can't access because there's just this barrier. And so I always call that's it's always the 1-2 punch, right? So that was the first jab. The next woman, and who knows, maybe they planned this. So the next woman then stood up and said, I walk 4 hours a day for water. We know that there is a well in our community that has access to a sustainable source of water. We know when the monsoon rains come in, it fills up this lake, a quarter mile away, basically fills up the aquifer underneath our village, and then we can access that for clean drinking water. But we don't have the $5,000 to build the well. And so I went home, and so that one finished me off. That was the second punch. So I went home and created a holiday card and sent it out to my friends and my family, and really just told the story of this woman in the village was Vasharajpur. And so I told the story. I said, hey, I'm giving $2,500 to $5,000 to Vasharajpur. Here's the story. They walk 4 hours a day for water. I will send that along with any other contributions in January. So very, very soft ask. I started getting $500 checks. So my friend's wife, my college roommate, and then one day I opened up a Christmas card in the mail, and it was the best kind of card is when you open it up and something slips down into your lap. And it said, Dan, I was talking to your mom, and she was explaining what you were doing. I never knew I wanted this, but it's exactly what I want. And it was a check for $500, nothing on the pay line, because he didn't know who to make the check out to. It was my high school English teacher, right? And so that's when the sparks started going off in my head. And so I could have started an organization and said, you know what, I'm going to go out and I'm going to build wells all over India. And the problem with that is, it's not community-based. You're not working with the community directly to say, hey, what's needed? You tell someone that they're going to get a well, and hey, who needs a well? And then everyone raises their hand and they get the well. And that's whether you live in India or you live in Little Rock or Chicago. And so what I realized it was us. We were actually part of the problem, part of the solution, in that there's a lot of people out there that give, and they give a lot. And a lot of us can, Bill Gates can give $50 million, but actually most of us can only give $50. But here is that people started giving me $500 checks, 10 times more than they typically gave. And so I asked them why. And they said, because you're connecting us directly in a way that we've never been connected before, and we can see the direct impact that we're working on. And the other issue was people wanted control, right? They wanted to be able to choose their project, right? They wanted to be able to fundraise in a way that, they felt most comfortable with. And they wanted a direct connection to the community that they were working with. So that was really how was the initial idea around Citizen Effect. And as Josh kind of teed it up, we strongly believe that anybody can be a philanthropist. I think, a lot of people think that the reasons why the Rockefellers and the MacArthurs and the Gates, were philanthropists in the 20th century was because of all the money. That's partially true. But what the money gave them was access. They could spend the money to go halfway around the world, right? They could spend the money to connect with these communities, to figure out what they needed, to develop programs, and then to deliver those services. But what's happening now is with technology and with the internet and with mobile communications is all of us actually can have a direct connection with a community halfway around the world. And you can, know them, you can build a relationship with them, and that is something where I think is really tearing down the walls and allowing this idea of citizen philanthropy to exist, because it allows a group of high school girls in Chicago to hear about Sonal Nagar village in India and hear that they walk 2 or 3 hours a day to collect wood and other things to burn for fuel for cooking. And that was causing deforestation, that was causing erosion, that was high carbon emissions and all of these complex problems. But at the same time, taking up 2 or 3 hours of these women's time, leaving them exhausted, cuts on their feet, causing infections, and therefore completely decimating any time they had to actually do productive activities, to actually potentially get a job and earn an income, to start a small business. So these high school girls from New Trier High School, they did what they loved. They loved music. So they did the classic Battle of the Bands, right? And they got 7 bands from their high school to come together and have a concert. And then they charged $7 for the tickets, and they raised $2,400 to build biogas plants in India. And now many families in Sonal Nagar don't have to walk 2 or 3 hours a day. Now all they need to do is go and scoop up the poop from their about 4 cattle and put it into the biogas plant, which is literally just a cylindrical cement container about that big. It then goes into a kind of underground dome, creates the gas, which they then can control with a valve, use that for cooking. And the best part is it discharges organic fertilizer. So now many of them had small plots of land that they could never do anything with. So now they're using that to grow food either for the family or even if it's productive enough to actually sell that to market and actually earn an income. And probably most importantly, it gives them back their time, and which therefore gives them back their freedom. So they can start other income earning activities. And all by the ability of a bunch of high school students through Citizen Effect to come on a website and see, wow, I'm interested in clean energy issues. And one of them actually, his family was from Gujarat, India, and so they chose this project. And then giving them a platform by which they can promote, communicate, and market their project to their friends and family to drive all the students, and over 250 kids came to this concert to raise the money for the project. So that's kind of how citizen philanthropy and Citizen Effect works. But I think there's Mei Yu is sitting here. She's our project manager. That's really where the other half is, that people don't want to give money anymore and not know where it goes. They want to see the impact. And so it's this whole idea. I hate the word donation. I hate the whole idea that you give a donation and for some reason that's lesser than giving a micro loan. Because I see it as we spend money all the time. So, you give the person at the convenience store some money and you get a Coke, right? I buy a subscription to the Wall Street Journal online. All I get back is information, and I pay $25 a month for that. And so the whole idea that you basically just give a donation and don't care about the money anymore, I think is becoming very something of the past. Because now what people are doing are buying impact, right? What they want to know is they want to give $50 to their friend who's raising $5,000 that's going to go towards building a well in India, and they want to know what happens. Okay, now what? What was the impact? How did I improve these people's lives? What is going on? It's great to know that now Vashrajpur has a well that provides 500 people with clean water. But honestly, what blows people away is the story that now one woman started a grocery store, right, and has now more than doubled family income. Another woman started a flour mill, and again, has more than doubled or tripled family income. And so people now know that giving a donation isn't just blindly giving money away. It's actually now giving them something in return, and they're getting that impact and seeing the impact that they're having in the world. So that's one of the things I think that is the changing dynamic. And I think microfinance is an amazing tool in the toolkit to help address these major problems that the world is having. But I do only think it is a tool, because I do think that if we think that the market mechanisms are going to solve all of the world's problems, I think that's a big problem, and I think that's a big mistake, because things do become very local. Some communities need a well. Some communities need a child care center. Some communities basically have those things, but now need a loan in order to start a new business. Other small businesses have started, but now need more capital to be able to get a larger loan or mesofinance in order to then scale their business, hire employees, and grow the business. So I think one of the challenges is, if you want to call it in industry, is to figure out how all these tools play together. How do you kind of deal with kind of the basics of the basics? When a woman walks 4 hours a day for water, no loan in the world is going to help her because she has no time to use it. Then how do you deal with people that want to start a small business? How do you want to help people that want to grow their business? And then more importantly, how do you take all of us and get us directly engaged? And how do we take this whole idea of us as citizens and citizen philanthropists or citizen lenders, and then figure out how do we then work with, the big boys? How do we work with the Gateses of the world and the Rockefellers of the world? So it's not a competition, but we're actually all in collaboration. So I think that's kind of the big message that I have, other than I hope the new owner for the Chicago Cubs actually does really turn it around this year. 102 years is definitely enough. The last thing I want to leave you with is going back to the whole idea of, the water crisis, of 2 billion people, or the food crisis with over 1 billion hungry people in the world. It's an important number, but stop thinking of it that way, because it's so discouraging. Okay, start thinking of it as these girls at New Trier High School basically came together and they solved the energy crisis in Sunelnagar village, right? We have a guy who rode his bicycle 3,000 miles from San Diego to Florida, and he solved the sanitation crisis in a community in India. We have a girl, a recent graduate of college in Arizona, who basically is now on her second project, and she solved the energy crisis, or the education crisis, in Peru. And so when you can look at it and say, hey, let's, from a community level, what are the struggles and what are the crises going on there, and how do we address them? And not try to program out, okay, well, first we're going to address the water crisis, and then we're going to start these small businesses, and then we're going to do X, Y, and Z, and completely social engineer the process. Let's first start dealing with eliminating the barriers that are preventing people from having the time to start a small business, or to take care of their kids, or to get the health care they need. And then you see amazing things start to happen. Do the next level of programs need to happen? Yes, they absolutely do. But I think we have to empower them as much as we feel empowered ourselves to kind of live the lives that we want to lead. So I will kind of open it up now for questions, and thank you so much for listening.
Okay, everybody. Let's get the microphones over here, and we'll start the dialogue. And thank you.
Hi, thank you so much for being here today. My name is Kim Caldwell. I'm a Clinton School student.
Hey, Kim.
And we are, those of us in our first year right now are taking a class on social change.
Yeah.
And a lot of the concepts that you talked today about working with communities and kind of being that local presence definitely echo. And one of the other concepts we talk about is scalability and how growing isn't linear.
Yeah.
And certainly there are questions about growing kind of the impact on communities, but also growing this idea, I like how you put it, of having people be able to buy impact. So I'm curious how you think your projects might grow and how you think that your organization might grow.
Great question. I think one of the people on our board, Jane Madden, she has done a lot of work with the World Bank and CHF and some other kind of larger development organizations. So she's kind of a weird person to really kind of glom onto the idea. And the reason why is because she sees the way we're going to scale completely differently than everybody else. So we're always going to do a $1,000 child care center and a $5,000 well, right? We're never going to do $50,000 water infrastructure projects or $1 million ones. One of those reasons is because we say we raise our projects are all between $1,000 and $10,000. Why? Is because when you deal with people like us in the room that are going to go out and try to do something, once you get over $7,000 to $10,000, it's so intimidating that people don't think they can do it. So how do you scale then? So we scale by making sure that we're going out and finding the best partners around the world. And we had a great talk with Winthrop Rockefeller today about even the United States and getting as many of those projects into the system as possible, right? And then spending a lot more time of getting more of us all involved. And the reality is that, if you do one of these projects, what's going to happen is you're going to probably raise money from 50 people, and you're probably going to touch 200 people through it, right? Now what we've started to do is not only help a community, in India or Africa or somewhere, but also started to build civic engagement in community here. Okay, and I think that's another big piece of the solution. But then as you look at scale, like, fine, how do we scale the village in Vasarajpur? Vasarajpur is scaling itself, right? If you put that well in place, and now small businesses start to crop up, and then lending groups start to crop up, and then now in your driving commercial activity, and then they might say, yeah, sure, now one of our barriers is education. There's no school for our kids to go to, therefore there's mothers that are locked up taking care of their kids all day. And so now, okay, great, we'll fund the child care center, but then we'll see now, sure, 8 hours a day for a kid, for 30 kids, provide 30 kids with a great education, nutrition, and all the rest, but it also frees up the time of 30 mothers now that have the choice. And they might choose to, open a business. They might choose to get a job. They might choose to actually have a break for the first time in their life. So is that absolutely.
Question, Ryan.
Thank you so much for being here today. My name's Ryan, and I'm a student here at the Clinton School. This stems from this speech as well as some outside factors that have happened in my life today, revolving around the idea of accountability.
Yes.
And what struck me during your speech, which made me think a little bit, is while we have these donors that want to be more involved and be invested, how do you hold them accountable to be accountable to the people that they're serving and not dictate to them what they're supposed to do, while at the same time with the people that we're serving, holding them accountable
Absolutely.
to what they do.
Fantastic question.
How as an organization do you address that, and what are some things?
Absolutely. It's really the crux of the issue in the sense that we basically, it gets back to buying impact, right? So I'll address the community side first. So when we find our partners around the world, we have to make sure that they can manage, implement, and then measure the impact of the projects. And so we don't partner with anybody that can't provide that, what I'll call the information stream, right? So there's two important streams for us, the dollar stream and the information stream. So we have a 7-year-old girl in Maryland who's raising money for a well in India. So if this little girl goes off and raises $2,000 for that, I'm the last person on the planet that wants to tell her that, oh, I'm sorry, your money was absconded and the well isn't going to get built, right? That's kind of a hard conversation to have. And so we make sure through the upfront due diligence process that we're working with very high quality organizations, and they have the organizational capacity to deliver, right? And then we have the check-ins, and like Josh goes, and Josh went to all these projects and saw the work that a lot of these citizen philanthropists had funded, and it was great. Sometimes he was like, hey man, this village is awesome, and then on another one he's like, you need to check in on this one, and kind of, it's not that they're not doing it, just make sure that you kind of keep tabs on what they're doing. But then we have to be accountable too, right? And this is one of the, we want to get away from the give and forget mentality, right? We don't want people to just cut the $50 check to, Haiti or tsunami relief and be like, okay, great, I've done my share and I just go on with my life. And that's really where the citizen philanthropist comes in. So not everyone is a citizen philanthropist. On purpose, we kind of set up barriers and a process to make sure that the person is very committed. Last thing we want is someone being like, hey, this is my project and that's great, and today I'm all fired up about it, and then tomorrow say, you know what, I'm a little bit too busy and I'm not going to get this done. 3 months later, we've realized that no fundraising's gone on and we've completely, screwed this community. And so that's where kind of we come in to make sure that we're working directly with our citizen philanthropists, and then they're working directly with their donors. But we do find that, we're kind of a startup, newer organization, but 50% of the citizen philanthropists that finish their fundraising actually do another project, okay? What we also find is that they then go out and recruit the next generation. So the people that gave to them are then the people that are then becoming the next generation of citizen philanthropists to kind of keep that going. Thanks for the question.
Dewi.
Thank you for being here. I'm Dewi. I'm from Indonesia. I'm a student here. I have 2 questions. You mentioned earlier that you work with high organization that already established, so you partner with them.
Yeah.
High quality of organization.
Yeah.
How do you find them? Is it local basis or national basis? And how do you make sure that sometimes high quality organization they don't really work?
Yep.
I witnessed that.
Absolutely. Now I think what I do want to clarify is when we say high quality, we don't mean big or small. So we work with SEWA, which is a very large organization. We also work with Children of Vietnam, which is a very small organization. So for us, it's really about finding these groups, and we find them through great organizations like the Clinton Foundation, and me being part of kind of the Clinton Global Initiative and being able to identify those. We also will then, for example, again, sorry to bring them up again, but the Winford Rockefeller Foundation, and talking to them about who are great organizations that you can recommend in Arkansas. And so people that are very familiar with the area, whether it's a state or if it's another country, that actually know a lot more about it and might know about these smaller organizations that are doing amazing work but don't have any access, to us. And we've been kind of flooded in the last couple months since we relaunched the site, because smaller NGOs and community groups now see us as a new fundraising channel, right? So they see they're still going out to USA, they're still going out to the grant writing process with larger foundations, but then now they see the whole idea of being able to tap into citizen philanthropy as a new revenue source for them to fund their projects.
And the second was about the sustainability. I worked in Aceh in the tsunami affected area for the last 3 years, and some projects they are so good, but then when some donors left, the project itself collapsed.
Right.
So how do you make sure that sustainability really established in the society, and how do you differentiate your approach of sustainability?
Yep.
Because I think every organization has that.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
No, thanks for your questions. basically the sustainability issue again starts with picking the right partners. And so we want to make sure that when a project it's always community based. So we never go in and be like, oh, this village needs a child care center and that one needs solar lanterns. Basically, we work with groups that are in the community that say, hey, this is what our community needs. This is how it's prioritized. And so it's all community generated. And so there's a high ownership level there. But at the same time, like when we'll fund a well, and it will be a grant, it won't be a loan, they will then, this community itself will set up maybe like a water board, right? Well, they'll be like, hey, here are the people that are going to manage this, and they'll go around every so often and raise money for maintenance and repair and to make sure that there is kind of that community ownership of that. But then there's things like education, right? There's things like running a child care center, which require, an annual budget. And so that's one of the things we're really trying to figure out. And we've had a lot of people fund child care centers, and we're trying to work with the local organizations to say, hey, great, how do you guys prove? And this is where the impact reporting not only benefits us as givers, but benefits them, because now they have that data. And now they can take that out to other organizations as a case study and say, hey, what we do works. We now need either from the government or from other groups now money from you to help run these programs. So, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. You have a question right here? Let's wait for she'll get the microphone here.
Hi, I'm just someone living in Little Rock. I'm not a
Thanks so much.
school person, but there's such a controversy about the cost of overhead and consulting fees. And Dr. Paul Farmer did testify in front of Congress. He founded Partners in Health.
Yep.
That in his opinion, if we slashed overhead, if we slashed consulting fees, then we would have more of an impact. But, people who work for these organizations, they have families,
Yep.
they have rent to pay and mortgages. So what is your take on this?
And I'll reflect on that just through our model. So we've built a model that we believe will be self-sustaining. So we're a small organization now, so we're out there actively fundraising to kind of build our factory, right, so we can operate. But we are very confident that we will be able to generate enough revenue ourselves to basically pay our overhead and allow 100% of project donations to go to the project. And the reason that works is because everybody in this room is pretty awesome, right? So because people understand exactly what you said, that if you want to do some good work, you need to pay people to do the good work, okay? But I think what we've been able to do, we go to restaurants every day, right? And the great servers get a little bit bigger tip than the lousy servers. And so we hope that we become a really good server. And that when someone does a project, let's say someone does a project and they get 100 friends to come and they all give $50. That means $50 that they give, 100% of it, minus the credit card fee, will go directly to the project that person is supporting. And then we give them the ability to say, hey, we love Citizen Effect. Help them out. We could not do this without them, so give them a tip. So we find that over 70% of the people give us a tip, and they tip us about 10%. So now if you're driving $100,000, $200,000 through a system, that's great. That buys a computer and pays some salary. But when you're basically pushing through $30 million a year, something that Kiva is doing and others are doing, that actually can really satisfy your operational budget if you're managing it in the right way. But I always say too, whether you're a nonprofit or a for-profit, has no impact on whether you run your organization like a business. You have to run it like a business. You have to look at where are other revenue streams. So we've already been talking with people about how do we create microsites. So right now, it's kind of like we're kind of like Walmart. You walk into us and there's Sewa and there's Cooper Deli and there's Children of Vietnam and there's Forge and you got to pick which one you want. So someone, like Sewa will come to us and be like, why don't we have just the Sewa branded site, which only our projects, and we can go out and actively market that to our people, and we run off your technology and your back end. So we can make money off of that. We also have other groups that don't work in international development, but have donor bases that they know are completely under leveraged, where they look at their donor base and say, why are we only asking these people for $50 a year or $500 a year when we know 10% of them will turn right around and raise $5,000 for us? And so we can license them then the technology and make money off of that as well. So like thinking through building a business model that actually is self-sustaining on tips alone, but then, hey, where are other ways that we can actually make money off of it? Yep.
Any other questions? Dan, thank you very much for being with us.